First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. And I'd really like to thank law enforcement. You guys wave your arms back there. Thank you for coming out here and keeping us safe. We prepared for the worst and hope for the best, and it looks like the best won out, unless they show up. So, but yeah, just thank you for everybody for coming out here. I'm sorry we ran out of chairs. Who knew we'd be so popular? But I'd like to start out with Pledge of Allegiance. There's a little flag over there. There's kind of a flag up here. So if you could move your hats, stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If everybody would, I'm sorry, remain standing and hats off. Vicki Thompson's going to do an invocation.
Thank you. Please bow your head. Heavenly Father, we come before you with humble hearts, seeking your wisdom and truth. In a world where power can cloud judgment and self-interest can overshadow justice, we ask you to guide those who lead our nation. Shine your light into every place where there is confusion, dishonesty, or wrongdoing, and replace it with integrity, courage, and a deep love for what is right. Grant discernment to the people that we may recognize truth, stand firm in righteousness, and act with compassion toward one another. Restore what is broken and build unity where there is division. May your peace guard our minds and your wisdom shape our decisions today and always. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I'll put my hat back on so you don't have to look at my messy hair. My name is Lisa Murphy. I am the chair of the Wadena County Republicans. And thanks, Dick. And I welcome you all here. We have some great speakers today, and hopefully answer some questions on the horrible atrocities that are being done on our taxes here in Minnesota, and with all the fraud. I have a couple people I'd like to introduce first that are going to do some introductions. Drew Peterson is one of my vice chairs for Wadena County Republicans, and I'd like to have him come up. He's got a few words to say. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you, Lisa. Hi, everyone. My name is Drew Peterson. I'm a vice chair at Wadena County Republicans. We have our meetings once a month, every fourth Tuesday. Yep. So if you ever want to see how the process works at the county level, you can come do that. I'm running for Minnesota's 5B, and I'm very thankful to see this room just packed full of people who care about Minnesota, who care about the process and being involved in our government. I want to thank Mike, Krista, and Paul for being here. There's an absolute wealth of knowledge, these three. And I'm very thankful that I was able to learn from them, and I'm excited to keep learning from them in everything that happens going forward. We have a lot of work to do with, again, I'm sure you all know the chaos in the cities. A lot of work to do involving that, and we just want Minnesota to thrive and be better off. Thank you so much.
We also have the special privilege of having Naran Dillon here from the Fishbach campaign. So I'm going to have her give a few words from the Congresswoman. You got a bargain. Not only do we have the wonderful three, but we got a bonus.
All right, well, thank you very much, Lisa. And I'm going to kind of wing it. I wasn't expecting to speak. The legislators are the highlight today. But because I'm here, I appreciate just a few minutes. The big story out of Washington, D.C., of course, is for the first time in, I think, 19 years, maybe even longer than that, is Congress has finally followed regular order and passed all 12. Like, the House has passed all 12, the Senate has passed 11. There's a holdup on the Department of Homeland Security funding, and so that is going to come back to the House next week. There will be some negotiations, but again, like this kicking the can down the road with continuing resolutions, we're very, very happy that the House Republicans and working with the Senate, we got it done to actually have an open, transparent funding process for the federal government where bills were heard in committees, they were marked up, and they came to floor for votes. We're very, very happy about that. The one other thing I'll mention at the federal level, I mean, obviously what's happening in the cities is just the attacks on ICE are completely unacceptable, but also the loss of life is always a tragedy. We need to see a little more cooperation from our leaders for A.G. Ellison to put out a statement saying that county jails shouldn't work with ICE, that they can release criminals back onto the street instead of detaining them. I mean, that is really unacceptable. And we can't lose sight of that lack of cooperation because of loud, just at the protests and stuff that are happening in the cities. So the other thing I want to mention is, of course, you know, like elections have consequences, and this country voted for an America First agenda, and President Trump is definitely moving at breakneck speed. Perhaps you saw that he has withdrawn the United States from the World Health Organization. He also withdrew the country from 68 different foreign organizations, including 31 UN commissions. And certainly it would be really nice if we could stop the flow of taxpayer dollars at the state level, and that's what we're going to be working on here in 2026, is being the wind under the wings of our statewide candidates and hopefully delivering a Republican trifecta. But as Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced when they withdrew from these organizations, the days of billions of dollars in taxpayer money flowing to foreign interests at the expense of our people are over. The Congresswoman supports the America First agenda, and again, I really appreciate just a few minutes on a DC update and enjoy the update from the state level. Thank you.
Thank you, Noran. Well, you guys didn't come here to see me, so I'm going to turn it over to our representatives and our senator.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Whenever we have these kinds of town halls, we never know how many people are going to show up. So sorry about standing room only, but thank you for being here. I'm State Representative Krista Knudsen. I represent House District 5A, which includes a portion of Cass County, most of Hubbard County, part of Becker County, and then the northern part of Wadena County. I'm in my second term and just gonna start my fourth session. Wow. We have a lot going on in our state right now. You know, I don't know exactly what everybody knows and what everybody doesn't know. I'm hoping that today we can get some really good answers, have some really good discussions about all of the different issues. I do just want to share with you that since I've been in the legislature, my focus has been on children. I deal with kids. I have 4 kids of my own, and I spend a lot of my time down there fighting to help protect the children of Minnesota. I serve on the Education Finance Committee, and I also now serve on the Health Committee and the Human Services Committee. But really my main focus is kids. How can we make this state a better place for our children and everything that that entails. So looking forward to a great discussion today, and thank you again for everybody coming out.
Good morning, and thanks for coming out on a cold Saturday morning and venturing here, so appreciate that. As we look forward, or I guess State Senator Paul Etke and is following, I'll kind of follow the role that you went down, and you know the areas that I serve in at the State Senate. I serve as the minority lead in health. I served on Human Services for 9 years, going into my 10th year there, and then the last year I served us on the Higher Education Committee. Over the years I've touched on a few others, Commerce and K-12 education, jobs and energy. So you kind of get moved around a little bit, but the Health and Human Services has been kind of a mainstay all the way along. As we look forward to the 27th session, up until the last month, I was thinking, you know, what are our top 3 issues? Where are our conversations going to go? Because this is a short session. We don't go back in until February 17th. It's only 3 months because we have a mandated adjournment date in May, and we're going to have an Easter break in there. So there's you've got 3 months less, a little over a week of time off. So we only have about 6 weeks of actual committee hearing time, which means it's going to go really fast. So I'm thinking fraud is going to be a big topic. The budget deficit that's on the horizon. This biennium was okay. It's going to show some surplus dollars, but if anything there is moved, used, whatever, it's going to make the deficit bigger going forward, where we should be working on reducing that deficit at this point, so it isn't all laying there for the next biennium. And then cost of health care, both the cost of health care and the cost of health insurance. Huge things that have taken giant leaps. Well, then in the last month, we have all this chaos going on in the Twin Cities. I've been part of in the Senate, we have a Federal Impacts Committee that's been meeting since late September, put on by the Democrats, and we meet every week, and it's been jumping all over on the topics on different things coming from the federal government, whether it was started conversations around SNAP and food and all these things. Well, now it's gotten, you know, the last few weeks are on ICE and all these interactions down there. I'm afraid now we're going to see a number of bills that come out that they're going to put in and bring forward and want to push this stuff through related to this last month's happenings. And all it's going to do is take the time away from the important things that we had on the table already that needed to be touched on and discussed. I didn't expect a lot to get done because of the fact it's a short year. And it's got to be something that the House can agree to. Being tied, these guys have a lot of power to say what's right and what's wrong. So that's kind of a quick little overview as far as what I see coming in this session. This session is typically a policy and bonding year. That's where I hope we can keep our focus. So thank you for being here.
Kind of amazing to see a crowd this size on a Saturday morning with 10 below temperatures. Thank you for showing up. Our state has been run by people who want to destroy it, basically. When you see what's going on here, you see the tax and spend policies, you see the massive influx in regulations, in spending. 10 years ago, we had $35 billion budget in the state, and we're nearly $70 billion now. Nearly doubled in 10 years. Has your income doubled in 10 years? Mine hasn't. But the state budget has. We see these problems, and they're massive. But how do we do this? We get involved. Somebody had said elections have consequences. Absolutely, they do. And when people show up like this gets me excited. This shows that people have had enough. And that's great. I have a button here, or a coin button as well. A friend gave me. It says, "The righteous are as bold as lions." We have governed in this state from a place of the minority. And we have not been bold. We have not pushed back like we should. This is part of the reason we're dealing with some of these issues, is we have come at this with one hand tied behind our back the whole time. So how do we flip this scenario? How do we take bold moves? One of them, if you haven't heard, articles of impeachment. This was something that, on a Sunday afternoon, I like doing my reading, and I thought about something, and I referred back to our Constitution, started reading it, looked at the articles of impeachment. And I thought, this is amazing, I hadn't thought about this before. Next day, Pastor Ben Davis gives me a call. Hey, Mike, I was looking at the articles of impeachment. Ben, we're on the same page. The massive amount of spending that's taking place in this state is primarily due to the policies that they put in place. The fraud that's taking place in this state is primarily due to what they're doing right now. We have to hold corrupt politicians accountable, and that's how we do it. We have to take bold steps. So I guess I'm a little bit fired up. You know, the introductions here were a little bit calmer. I think we're in an amazing place to take our state back, and I'm so excited for you all to be here. So, thank you. Do you want to go with questions first, or how do you?
Denny, should we go with questions first, or?
Sure.
I have a question. I know that many voters are frustrated with what seems like an impasse, that things that seem obvious to get through the legislature. I wonder if, Krista, you could address the frustration that you three have with being in the minority and how that affects how you can't get done what you want to get done.
Is that right? Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Thank you for your question. I've only known the minority. My first term in St. Paul, we were in the minority, and so was the Senate, and then we had a Democrat governor. That's the trifecta, and that's when we saw so much legislation passed that will forever change our state. This last session, we had a tied house, which was great for one thing. We were able to stop things. This last year, budget year, the Democrats proposed another $8 billion in new taxes. In our first term, they spent the $18 billion budget surplus, they increased taxes by $10 billion, and they grew government by 40%. They gave our state agencies 6,000 new FTEs, new full-time equivalent jobs. 6,000. The average cost of that is $125,000 per employee, including all of their benefits. That's $750 million just in new FTEs every single year. This is not sustainable. We can't do this. Minnesota can't do this. I get emails every single week from you people, from other people in my district saying, I can't even pay to heat my house. I can't buy groceries. I can't survive this. And I also get the emails saying, I'm leaving because I can't do this anymore. I can't live here anymore. And it doesn't have to be this way. It shouldn't be this way. We need to cut taxes. And now that we've seen the billions of dollars in fraud under the Walz administration, it's infuriating. And people are outraged. I'm outraged. And you're rightful. You're justified in being outraged. This is unacceptable. This is our money, and they have let it walk out of not only our state, but a lot of times our country. It's been really frustrating being in a minority. It's been really frustrating to see the problems, to see the issues, and to not be able to do anything to fix them. I am so hopeful, as Mike said, that we are seeing a rejuvenation, that we're seeing new people get involved in politics. We're seeing that younger generation. I know a lot of people talk about like Generation X and you know, the millennials are getting involved, but they're even younger than that. When Charlie Kirk was shot, my son, who is 14 years old, was devastated. And his best friend that night, his mom had to hold him as he fell asleep because he was crying until he finally fell asleep. That generation is fired up. Our future is bright with kids like that. There's a lot going on. I'm very hopeful that this year we will be able to turn the page. We will be able to elect a more conservative legislature. Walls will be gone, and hopefully we can get a strong Republican in the governor's seat and right the ship. So thanks for the question.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate your comments, hearing the review of what's ahead in the legislature. Considering the fact that our precinct caucuses are this Tuesday, coming up next week, I hope everyone will attend our precinct caucus. Would each of you kind of, explain, what do you expect, or what would you want from our precinct caucuses to bring forth issues of some type? What would you like to see from our caucus to begin that process onto our counties and so forth, that you can grab a hold of and go? What would you like to see?
The precinct caucuses are basically the grassroots. That's the start of the whole process. When people show up, and we've seen this before, where participation is pretty low. Well, those delegates who are elected, that's your friends, your family, your neighbor, at those caucuses, they become the people who endorse the candidates. They make the decision of who is going to be on the ballot. So truth be told, 5 years ago, I didn't know what a caucus was. I had no idea. I voted every year, or every time I could, since I was 18. Didn't understand the process of the caucus. Once I started doing research and figuring it out, I went, oh, I don't want to be the person that just puts a check mark in November by a candidate. I want to be the person that decides who is on that ballot in November. That's the power of the caucuses. That's the power of showing up, is getting involved because you decide who is going to be on that ballot. Right now we have 13, 14 candidates for governor. The people who are in the caucuses, who go through that system, who get involved, who become delegates, get to decide which name is on the ballot. That's how powerful that is. Was it explained well enough to me when I was young? Maybe. Maybe I didn't pay attention, I couldn't tell you. But as an adult, once I figured it out, and it makes me think of something, and I don't remember where the quote comes from, but it was, I don't care who is on the ballot as long as I get to pick the name that's on the ballot. Here we are. You get to decide which name is on that ballot. That's why the caucuses are so important. Everybody needs to get involved. The younger people, we've been talking about this more and more in our demographics. We need them involved. If you look at the age of our typical Republican voter in the state of Minnesota, we are a much older demographic than the Democrats. They're in their 40s, I think we're in our 60s. We have to pull the young people into our party. We have to pull new blood into our party. Otherwise, the future is not very bright for us. But when I see things like the Charlie Kirk tragic scenario that drove young people to get involved, I can't take credit for this, but I'll share the story. After his shooting, was it a week later? Looking at my wife. Well, no, CJ's event.
Oh, yeah.
It was the week later. My son, 19 years old, calls me up on a Thursday night and said, Dad, we want to do a drive. What do you need? He He said, we want to do a Charlie Kirk Memorial Drive. Okay, what do you think? I said, well, let's put it out on Facebook and see what happens. He said, well, I'll put something together. I said, why don't you come over in the morning, Amber and you can design this. We'll put it on Facebook. I said, how many people do you think you should expect? He goes, I don't know, what do you think? I said, if you get 20 people, if you get 20 of your friends to show up in their jacked up pickups and their diesels and their American flags on the back, I said, that's a success. We put it out on Friday morning, scheduled for Sunday. It was amazing. Sunday morning, me and Amber jumped in the truck, afternoon after church actually, jumped in the truck and we're gonna head to Sauk Center because that's where it started. We get onto the road, Highway 71, and I see a line of trucks. I think there was 5 trucks in front of us flying American flags. And I said, well, there's 20% of what CJ was expecting. We pulled into the truck stop in Sauk Center. There was over 50 vehicles already there. By the time the lineup was done, there was 125 at the truck stop. A 19-year-old kid who wanted to get involved. That's what we need. We need that energy. We need that next generation. By the time we got done there, it was, from people from all over the state were there. The person that led from Sauk Center to Long Prairie, we stopped up there at Thunder Lodge. I'd never met the guy before. He was from Big Lake, but he had flashing lights on his truck. And I said, you're going to lead this thing. And he did, no problem. Met people from Glenwood, far south, St. Michael, Elberville, further up north. There was all kinds of people. We had Harleys, we had classic cars. There was even a camper that showed up. That's the excitement that we need. Starts at the caucuses. We bring the young people in, we get them excited, show them that their voice matters. Their future is on the line. So, that's how I feel about the caucuses.
Thank you. And not to try and repeat, we'll go a little on some other stuff. You know, first of all, at caucus, hopefully we have a room full like this, because that means people care. And caucus is where it all starts. And, you know, we talk a lot about, that's where we start to hear from candidates, we start to form decisions and all of this as we go forward. But it's also the heart and soul of the organization. If we're going to have a good, strong organization, it takes people. And the people that get involved, now you can show up at the meetings and not have to be a delegate or an alternate, but if you want to be one of those, fill an office or do any of those other things, it starts at the caucus. So the caucus serves as the breeding ground for all of it, from our candidates to our organization, and it's so important. So my hope for Tuesday night is for all of our caucuses to have standing room only in our rooms, because that means not only do we have interested people, but we've got people that are coming forward to roll up their sleeves and go to work so that we have a stronger organization and party as we move forward into this election year.
Yeah, I mean, ditto. You know, I don't know if you can add too much more to that. We definitely need to energize the young population, the young kids, and get them out. It's intimidating to a lot of them, and that's what I hear. But it's intimidating to adults as well to just take a step and get involved, and I can understand that. But we don't have time to waste anymore. We have to get involved. The time is now, and hopefully we will see record turnouts on Tuesday night. So bring a friend if you're coming. Bring a friend.
Also, I'm going to add to this that back over on the little registration table, buried in the sea of people over there, if you're from Wadena County, I have a list of all the locations in which townships go to which location. So that's located over there in case you had any question on where your caucus locations are. Sorry I don't have surrounding counties, but I have Wadena County. And yes, this is so important. I mean, if I wouldn't have gone to caucus, I wouldn't be chair of Wadena County Republicans. That's how you get started. Dick, you wouldn't have went to caucus, you wouldn't have been vice chair. So this is how it gets started. It doesn't mean you have to become a vice chair or whatever, but it helps us, you know, like campaign season. It's like, hey, I got a sign that needs to be put up on Highway 29, whatever. Yeah, I looked through my scrapbook. It's like, oh, okay, so-and-so said they'd be willing to put up signs, they live in the area. You know, just something as simple as that, or working at the fair booth, or, you know, anything. This is how this all starts, because we can't do it by ourselves. So we need everybody involved. I don't care if it's writing a letter to the editor, making phone calls, door knocking, putting up a sign, working at the fair booth, anything helps. And we have to get involved. Sitting down and just showing up to vote is just not enough anymore, because the Democrats have been beating it at this game for way too long, and personally, I've had enough. You know, we're the reddest county in the state, but we're ruled by the tyrants. So I've had enough. If we all show up, and that's why we lose. It's not because we can't beat the Metro and, well, it's basically Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth, and Rochester decides our state. It's not that they outnumber us, it's we don't show up. We get apathetic. It's like, oh, we live in a Ruby Red district. We'll win. You know, Krista, Mike, Paul, they'll win, no problem, so we don't show up. But if we don't show up, the whole rest of the state wins. And then the Democrats take over. And I am sick and tired of that. So everybody, show up, do something. Okay. Oh, this guy here said, thank you, everybody. Get off my soapbox.
I want to thank you guys for holding a town hall during this time.
Yay, Wadena County Republicans.
Yeah, really, thank you so much. I am actually a Democrat, and I'm here because you provided this opportunity. Thank you. I see all of us, most of us here are in the same demographic. We're older, and we care, as you said. And all of us want to get younger people involved, whatever their political stripes are. But I just kind of want to let people know here how the 35% think and feel right now, and I think you know it, but the turmoil that's going on in Minneapolis is very upsetting. And we feel that a line has been crossed. And I think that everybody, it's free speech, people can believe that whatever means necessary to get rid of these immigrants, we're going to do that. And you're free to feel that. And you're free to think, yeah, let's gun ho and do this. But elected officials, public servants, law enforcement officers are bound by the Constitution and the civil rights of Americans. And there's a real problem. What happened in Minneapolis with people being dragged out of their cars, many of them citizens, helpless, by large forces of paramilitary people who are masked. It's not funny. It's not on par, even though you're legitimate, the fraud is legitimate. And I don't deny that at all. We need to work on that together. But what I would ask you to do, and obviously you guys are in a position of strength here. I'm the one that's vulnerable. Statewide, you're right. You are in the minority. And I know how hard that is. But the way that I feel right now, I feel like it seems obvious to me that Kristi Noem should be fired. And I think as public servants who have to uphold the Constitution, what my request would be for you three is to call your national representatives. Call Michelle Fischbach, call Pete Stauber, call Tom Emmer, ask them to talk to President Trump and demand that he fire this woman who said immediately who was to blame for being killed on those streets.
Your question, sir?
Well, I'm telling you how I feel. My question is, I'm getting to that because the other thing that I request, No, that's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
I really appreciate you listening. And I know you don't want to listen. And you thought that we were gonna shut you down. So the last thing beyond that request would be to, I'm sorry, the last thing beyond that request would
Just-
be other
just one
request.
second.
Yeah.
I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. This man has the floor. This is a town hall. This is open to everybody. So, you'll be asked to leave. This is everybody's forum. These are our representatives. Not just Republican representatives, they are our state representatives. So, please, I'm sorry.
Thank you. The other thing I'd like to request is I'd really like you to try to push to have the BCA involved in the investigations and have access to the evidence that the department, the feds have said no. That's not right. We should be able to have an independent investigation. Not to say that people will be prosecuted, not to say, okay, I believe what you guys believe, that we should look at everything that happened before that led up to all of these incidents, and that they need to be fairly adjudicated. And I think that those are reasonable requests. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to talk to your national representatives and demand that Christina will be fired, one, and that we can have state investigations of what's happening in Minneapolis?
Well, thanks for being here. It's not easy to stand in a room when you know that you're going to be outnumbered. It's not easy. I understand that. I respect that. How did we get to this situation? Why are we in the situation that we are right now? You can't look at the effects if you don't look at the cause, first of all. Our immigration system has not, it's been a tool for both sides for far too long. That's a fact. Under the Bush administration, there were 2 to 3 million illegal immigrants that were deported. Under the Obama administration, there were 6 million, if I recall correctly, that were deported. Obama was named as the deporter-in-chief by many news sources. But it's been used partly because we don't have a positive birth rate in our country, so we were importing cheap labor because of various reasons. Industry likes cheap labor. That's a fact. So why do we have the problems that we do? Instead of a closed border, and if you go back and listen to what Obama said in his speech, if you go back and listen to what Bill Clinton said, Hillary Clinton, half of the debates that took place, they said, in quote Obama, we are a nation of immigrants, but we're a nation of laws. And if you came here illegally, you need to go to the back of the line. What has changed in the mentality in our country and in our state? Because what you voted for as a Democrat 20 years ago, now all of a sudden it's somehow wrong. Why has that mindset changed?
I don't think it has.
It absolutely has.
I don't want open borders.
So we don't want open borders
No, I
either.
was glad-
But now, if you'll let me finish, you were
Yes.
upset when other people were interrupting, please. So now that the border is closed after an estimated 10 to 12 million people came across the border under the Biden administration, we have no idea who came across the border. So the Trump administration has said, we're going to take the criminals off the streets. That has been the emphasis of ICE. And they have worked with various cities, various states across our nation. The difference between Minnesota and Memphis, Tennessee, Washington, D.C., and many other places is that the local entities in those other places worked with ICE. They got the murderers, the rapists, the drug dealers off the street, the child traffickers. Minnesota said, we're not going to work with ICE. They created a situation, or governor, leadership created a situation that fostered this environment. It's much like with my kids. How many times, think back, most of us have siblings, right? Somebody will instigate something. We've got 2 daughters that are very good at this. The younger one will pick on her older sister, and then when the older sister reacts, the younger one says, it's her fault. Every one of us has seen this. Kind of human nature. When the governor of this state made this a sanctuary state and said he would not work with the federal government, he created a situation that fostered what's going on right now. I do not want criminals on the street. If you're willing to defend them, that's your choice. I don't want murderers, rapists, drug dealers on the street. If you think that they should be here, that's your call. There has not been a mass deportation like there was underneath Obama. The mindset in this country by the liberals has changed, and they seem to selectively remember what worked 20 years ago. Why? It's all about political advantage. It's all about the next
What
election
doesn't work
cycle.
is having masked individuals on our streets.
I did not interrupt you.
You
sir.
did not answer my question. I
I did
asked a
not interrupt
question.
you.
Will you talk to your representatives about
I did
Christine
not
Elm?
interrupt you, sir.
He did not interrupt
I did
you.
not interrupt you.
You would listen instead of closing your ears, you would hear the
I heard
answer.
it. I agree with
I was
it.
respectful.
I agree with the source of it.
I was
There's no
respectful,
disagreement.
sir. If you would please either sit down or make a decision what you're going to do.
I'm deeply
I have
disappointed
respect.
that you won't agree to do that. It's so obvious that she said she
I am giving
characterizes.
you.
She can't stay in the job.
That's
Stand
your
up!
opinion.
It's time for you to stand up for us.
Time for you to
That's
go.
your
Stand
opinion,
up.
sir.
Time for you to go.
Coward, you're acting cowardly.
I am giving you the facts of the matter, and you're getting upset.
Time for you to go.
Don't touch me. Yes, you should. Don't touch me.
Time for you to go.
Speech. Look, you can stop me from being visible. You know that you can't stop me from speaking.
I can stop you from coming in here.
Causing a scene and being is not against the law.
Understanding history is
I
important.
didn't run against any of these people.
Understanding
I have
history
no
is important.
recollection.
These things have happened in the past. And unfortunately, unless you correct the situation, we're going to be dealing with it again. When the states choose not to work with the federal government, the deportations that Trump has called for is a fraction of what happened underneath the Obama administration.
Amen.
So why is it so much different now? I did not want chaos. As a matter of fact, when there was a shooting, the first shooting that took place, I said I wanted our governor and the president to get together and talk. Work this out. Get the criminals off the street. Does anybody remember the carjackings that were taking place the last few years down in the city? Minneapolis has been almost renamed Murderapolis because of the crime that's taken place in the street. But look at the number of murders that has dropped in the last year. It's like 30% drop in murders. Because when you create an environment of lawlessness, that's what you get. And now we're putting law and order back in place. And thank God for that to happen. That's bold statements by our president. That's a policy that needs to be taken across our whole country. So thank you.
Are we still answering that question? I see a lot of hands up. I can tell you how I feel about our federal agents. And I'll just tell you by saying that almost exactly a year ago, on January 20th of 2025, my cousin, Border Patrol Agent David Christopher Mayland, was shot and murdered in the line of duty at the northern border. I 100% support our federal agents.
Amen.
I will continue to pray. I'll continue to pray for their safety and their protection every single day. They deserve respect. They are here to uphold federal law, and that's what they're doing. Are there bad actors? I don't know. Maybe, but that will be dealt with once all the facts are in. They are here to uphold federal law. That's what they're doing. This is made really hard for them in Minnesota because of the lack of cooperation from our governor, from Mayor Frey of Minneapolis, our Attorney General. Their rhetoric has caused people to hit the streets, impede in their law enforcement duties, get in their face, bite the finger off of these federal agents. That could all be stopped if our state leaders would stop using that language. This lies squarely on their shoulders. They have targeted criminal, illegal aliens that they are trying to remove from Minnesota. These are rapists. These are pedophiles. These are sex traffickers. These are drug dealers. These are bad guys. And they need to leave our state. I 100% support our federal agents.
And thank you, and I will answer the guy's question. He's no longer here, but I will not call for Christy Nolan to be fired. That agency has got a tough job going right now. They came into ICE, and ICE is always here. ICE has got an office in St. Paul that's been there for years. This is nothing new, but the numbers of agents is ramped up because Governor Walz and Mayor Frey have said our local officers in law enforcement cannot work with them. You know, they can't offer the perimeter, they can't help anything, so they had to bring in a lot more officers just to protect those that are out on the street trying to do the job. I mean, those that are here, I read here that within the last week or 10 days, ICE was in Brainerd. They came in, the local sheriff's department worked with them. That night or whatever, they apprehended the 4 bad people and left. Nobody even knew about it till it was over. That's the way this should operate, but because our governor and Mayor Frey and others have decided that they want to fight against what ICE and the federal government is doing, we're in this position. The loss of life is horrible, and on Thursday, it was supposed to be a 2-hour hearing, turned into 4 hours, and about 3.5 of that was people testifying, telling us their stories of what they've experienced. And they're not. These people have lived some nightmares that they've experienced, but they shouldn't have to do that. But because it's allowed to escalate to this point, now we have people out on the street doing stupid stuff. That's the way I see it, and they're getting in trouble. And then we've had a few lose their life, which again is horrible. But we have got to behave like human beings and respect one another. And they're not respecting the rule of law and the Constitution at this point. And we want that from all parties so that this takes place. The ones that they came here and are trying to remove are the worst of the worst. These people, like Krista said, have done bad things. We don't want them here. We want all those here that have come legally or come for the right intentions, but they're just doing their job. But people are interfering with that, and the results have not been great. So we hope it gets better. I think that the fact that Tom Homan's here, there's conversations going on. Hopefully, they're going to get back to sitting around the table and discussing things. In the, Wal's been in 7 years. I think I've had 2 partial policy discussions with him because he will not discuss policy. You can't get him to come here and get serious about anything because you're not of the same mindset as him. I saw Governor Walz and President Trump as oil and water. There was no way Walz was going to have that conversation. Now it's finally starting. Tom Homan is here. Hopefully things will turn around and we can finish this up. I mean, and I don't mean finish up as ICE goes away. ICE is here and they're going to stay, but it'll go back to the normal numbers and they can do their job and protect all of us, because I don't think there's anyone in here that wants those murderers, rapists, child molesters, or whatever living next door. We want good people, and that's what they're working for. So thank you.
Hey, Bill, you were next. And, please, I gave that man respect. I asked you guys not to interrupt him. We will not tolerate that behavior. He went beyond, so please try to keep it respectful.
Thank you.
And I don't care what side you're on.
I don't know how to identify myself except for Jody. Paul and Mike and I have worked together for some time. I would like to say that I am honored to have probably educated Mike a little bit on the importance of mental health. I live in Eagle Bend, Minnesota. This part of Minnesota has been my home for going on 68 years, so now you all know how old I am. These three little people that came with me today are 3 of 27 grandchildren. That's why I'm here. I went to caucuses when I was 16 because I was worried about the pro-life concerns. Pretty much all of my life is around conservative things, but I am so disgusted with both parties right now. I know that I have communication with both of these guys, and we have a nonprofit that I started in 2013 called Wellness in the Woods. We provide 24/7 no-cost peer support to every adult in Minnesota. Well, those funds got cut last March from the feds. We've been scrimping and saving and writing grants so that is available for people, because guess what? The need has really increased, and now our services have decreased. The fraud piece, I have worked for seven organizations that went out of business because of fraud. And when the final one did, me as a nonprofit and going around Minnesota, helping people understand about mental health and addiction challenges, when they failed because of fraud in 2013, I went home, we were living, my husband and I were living in Nimrod, and we created a new nonprofit in our living room in Nimrod, 2013. We're still going, but we can't do this with just love. As far as fraud goes, I could tell you folks stories that'll turn you gray. We have tried, we have reported, it has been overlooked by DHS since 1984. That's more than one governor, that's more than one DHS commissioner. Get a hold of lovely Faye Bernstein, who works within DHS and is not afraid and has been protesting with a tape across her mouth that says DHS because she's been silenced at DHS. I listened to your hearings too, Paul, and what are we going to do? I mean, we've talked about it. You guys came up with a plan. DHS doesn't do anything different than they have been. We have been waiting to hear about this funding for our overnight warm line since August. They were supposed to let us know the end of August. Let me see, what is today? End of January? This is not bizarre. This is usual for DHS. I have been part of I'm on the Governor's State Advisory Council. I've been part of Behavioral Health Council. You know what we do? We sit and talk and talk and talk and have more meetings and nothing ever gets done. What is your next step? I'm going to gratitude here. To kick some butt at DHS. I mean, I can really take some action. I'm sorry, I get a little hot about fraud.
Oh, thank you, Jody. But she does have a very legitimate concern, and unfortunately, she's not the only one. I think I talk to people almost daily that the Department of Human Services is just failing. They're not doing their job down in St. Paul. And it is the belly of the beast down there because they do what they darn well please. We've put legislation through. We've done all kinds of things. We talked to them. We'll get to go back into session on the 17th now, and I don't know what, I mean, you talk to them, you pass things, you do everything possible, but yet there is nothing that forces them to do their job, and that's the very, very worst part. I don't care what anybody's doing. I talked to a guy yesterday, he's got a couple assisted livings that fortunately he's got a lot of money, and I don't know where he earned that from. It was outside of the running assisted livings, but how far they're behind in paying him and getting him his licensing and getting the money to him, he's able to foot the bill. And he says, we care about people, so we're going to continue to do that. But the normal person can't be $100,000 or $200,000 behind in payments and just say, we're going to do payroll next week and we're going to keep serving the people. God bless him, but that's not how our state should run. And that's the internal operation of our agencies, and Health and Human Services is the worst. Last session, my researcher and our fiscal staff, we all came together and we came up with a plan. Health and Human Services, the two agencies, are the only agencies in state government that the money isn't tracked. It isn't ridered. So that means if it's set up for the 2-year biennium, at the end of the 2 years, if that money hasn't been used as it was put forth in legislation, it drops back into the general fund and it's tracked. We all know it. It's transparent at that point. I went to the 2 chairs because we're in the minority by 1, so it's got to come forward from the Democrats. And so I went to both of them and I explained to them what we were wanting to do. And they both said, great. I mean, because really the money that they were appropriating last year in the budget, I said, don't you want to know that it's getting used for what you're bringing forward and passing? And yeah, we're good for that. So I got to put my amendment on the bill as it came, the final bill, getting ready to go to conference committees. Well, a few days later, I'm looking at that bill after we put the amendment on in the committee, and my language is missing. So I went and asked them, what's going on? You guys I came to you first. We explained the whole thing and you were all in. Well, the agencies came to them and said, we can't do this because it covers up what they've got going on. Those agencies can take that leftover money, even if they don't even use any of it, and they slide it into a slush fund and do their own thing. So they can pull monies that should go to operations like Jody's. She does $1 million of work on $50,000 or whatever. They do the results that she gets for every dollar that we give her, or we, the state. She does a tremendous job. We've got a lot of providers like that around our state that are doing good work. We hear about the fraud. A lot of it's coming from the metro because people have figured out how to scam a lot of money and send suitcases full of cash out of the country. But the problem is they do everything with a broad brush. I got a call this fall from the commissioner when they told me they were cutting back on the housing support services, saying we're going to contact CMS in Washington, D.C., that we are cutting this program because of the fraud. And I had said, you know, that was one that was susceptible, but we got to quit doing this with the broad paintbrush, because we do have, in the cases that we're talking about here, people doing the right thing, doing wonderful work, but yet they just, if they're going to wipe something out, we wipe out the whole thing, and then they continue to do the work on things that we say, hey, that's not productive, it's wasting our money, it's a fraudulent thing. So, Jody, I hear you, we've been talking about it there. Once we get to session, hopefully we can get some money released. I mean, out here, all we can do is send letters and talk to them, and so far they're not listening to us like they aren't listening to you.
We still are providing those services 24/7. Any adult in Minnesota, wellness in the woods, that's what we're here for. It also means that I might be answering some of those calls and some of my staff, because that's what you have to do, provide good services. So thank you all. I'm sorry I interrupted.
I'm going to just take a little broader step back on the whole fraud situation, but as soon as rumblings of massive fraud started coming out, Governor Walz decided that he was going to be the one to oversee how we handle fraud. That's kind of like putting the fox in charge of the hen house. And that's what they're doing. Instead of going after bad actors, they're going after everybody now. And a lot of our small providers in greater Minnesota are really feeling the pain because of that. Senator Rickey and I were part of a committee hearing this week, 2-day committee hearing this week, that was held by the Senate. But during that committee hearing, Commissioner Gandhi, the Commissioner of the Department of Human Services, was asked, out of the 100,000 programs that you have audited for the prepayment, how many have been referred for fraud? 0. She said 0. None. 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 Oh, okay. And that's what we get. That's why Governor Walz has put these things in place. With the current people that are running these departments, we're not going to get to the bottom of this. We have to have a nonpartisan, totally different agency that is overseeing the fraud issues. Right now, a lot of that's coming from the federal government. We need help. We are drowning in fraud right now. So I'm hopeful that the federal government will be able to sort this out, but do we have enough time? I don't know. It's massive. So.
Do you know if they got the plan in yesterday? The deadline, DHS had their edited plan to CMS was due yesterday. I heard them talking about that at the hearing. Do you know if that got done?
I don't.
Because I'm telling you what, if I don't get my audits done, you are just out of luck.
The penalties follow real fast, don't they?
The penalties, thankfully, we've never had any since 2013. But if we don't do something reporting back to them and do our additional audits on top of our regular audits and our desk audits and have, I mean, we're like $1 million organization employing 50 people. At the same time, there's just this whole issue with the people who are fraudulent. What are we going to do? Can we sell their cars or their Legos and get some money back? All the people I worked with when fraudsters got off scot-free. They moved to West Virginia and there was nothing happening to them. That's a problem.
The feds are in charge. The feds are in charge with this fraud now, and yes, I would expect that we know that with this fraudulent money, a lot of it has gone overseas. That's going to be probably money gone. But there has also been a lot of expenditures here in the United States. They've bought fancy resorts, they've bought beautiful homes, they've bought high-end automobiles. There's a lot of these things we hear about. They will be going after all the assets that are here in our country to recoup some of those dollars. The unfortunate thing, I was just listening on the way down this morning, that they're saying that there was $700 million a year in cash flying out of MSP. And those type of dollars will never be recovered because it gets, typically most of this goes to Atlanta, then to Dubai, and then from Dubai it gets wired in because they've had their problems getting it in. Well, then a slice goes to Al-Shabaab, which is a terrorist organization, and it starts to get divided up. But that's kind of water over the dam. But what's here, definitely, it can be done. But just one quick thing before I see hands up, and we want to get to those. When Krista was talking about our hearing yesterday, and actually it was on Thursday and Wednesday, we had the acting commissioner, temporary commissioner, whatever, Department of Human Services. The commissioner resigned last year, about a year ago, and they have not, Governor Walz has not put in an official commissioner yet. We've had an acting commissioner ever since. Same person's filled it, so it's, if he wants her, make her a commissioner. But anyhow, we asked her too about the fraud. I mean, that was what she was there for and all these things. And her words exactly, and I don't have them exact, so I don't quote her, but fact is, she said, we do not have a fraud problem in Minnesota. Our fraud in Minnesota is no different than any other state, and there's human beings doing all this processing. Human beings make mistakes, but we do not have a fraud problem that elevates us above anybody else. And she was asked that a number of times. Actually, I've heard the same words be coming out of Governor Walz's mouth, so they're reading from the same sheet of music. But the fact is, they can't even admit that we've got a fraud problem and just say, hey, these are 3 things we're going to do now to get this ball rolling. It's huge, so we got to get the process going. But you gotta admit we got a problem before you can start to fix it, and that's where we're at.
I think we should go repo Al-Shabaab's firearms
Yeah.
and their Toyotas.
Can I ask a question? Because I heard testimony of a TSA agent on Alpha that was saying that they have paperwork for all of this. Yeah, that they have paperwork. People would have had to sign for these kind of things. So then why can't you go after some of this? And I am frustrated as a family, as businesses. I just want to say my frustration that something can't be done. Nobody can run a business or a household like this and just let the money sieve out like you're bleeding to death. It can't go on. And who's ultimately going to be responsible? Who didn't get fired that should have been fired? That's all I'm saying. And I think these things should be able to be tracked. That's all I'm asking.
Well, if I could answer Jody's question, you talked about the fraud, and thank you. This is part of the problem. When the fraud is so massive, and you take certain departments, certain areas, and you look at the legitimate entities that are spending money versus the fraudulent ones, you have to be able to separate them somehow. And that's not being done. So unfortunately, when we saw like the HSS program that Governor Walz put a stop to, he said, I think Joe Thompson actually said, like 90% of that was fraud. But now there's that 10% that was actually doing legitimate good work. So the good entities are ending up suffering because of the massive amounts of fraud. And that's horrible. But where should our budget then be? What do we spend? You have to go through, and what our government has done, and partly due because of the bureaucracy, is we have not measured success by certain metrics. We have not measured it by how the outcomes are for the people. We have only measured it by dollars spent in this state. So the more money we spend, the more we claim success. That's not right. When we look at the homeless bill, the homeless legislation, we have more homeless now in our state than we did 10 years ago when we spent a fraction of the money on homelessness. We are not being successful at what we're doing. And I kind of like Ronald Reagan, his statement was, government is not the solution, it's the problem. So when a massive amounts of our taxes, if you look at it, at that time when Reagan was president, I think 22–25% generally of your dollar, every dollar you make, was taken in taxes. We are pushing 50% of every dollar you make that goes to taxes. And then when a massive amount of that in this state is going to fraud, I think people have a righteous anger that should be out there because you're getting stolen from. You're getting robbed from the opportunities. Because I think that in an entity like yours, Jody, I would like to donate personally.
Okay.
But with every dollar, and I did to the kitchen up on the hill, so it started there. But when 50% of every dollar you make is being taken by the government, you don't have the opportunity to be philanthropic like we used to. Because entities like yours, churches, other nonprofits, were funded by donations. But when government takes that money and decides that they're going to be charitable with it, that's a problem. Go back and look at our founding fathers, and they said government is not a charity. That is not the way this is supposed to be done. Can I ramble and tell a story?
No.
I'll make it quick.
No.
Daniel Boone, when he was in Congress, he voted on funding for a town that had lost a bunch of its structures and stuff by a fire. When he went back to his district, the person came to him when he was talking, he said, vote for me. And this individual says, I cannot do that. And Boone says, why? He said, you chose to vote money for a project like this. You decided what was charity and what wasn't. But you did not take into account the money that you took from me and other individuals. If you wanted to make this charity, you could have stuck your own money into Government is a bad arbiter of charity. But they're doing it, and we're allowing the bureaucracy to decide what we're going to fund. I believe the individual should be the person that decides where you are charitable. But when government is taking almost 50% of our dollar, of every dollar you make, we don't have the funds anymore to do that. I want those entities to have the funding. I do. At the same time, when government has gone so big, it is the problem. And the bureaucracy is killing us.
Next, we have this gentleman back here.
Right. Three things. First off, there have been reports that...
Mike's not on.
There we go. All right, three things. First off, there have been reports that some government officials, as well as members of our own Congress, have been involved in the Signal app, sending information on where ICE deployments are going to be and notifying the leftist protesters so they can get mobilized. What is being done about that? That's number one. Number two, is there anything that we can do to prevent leftist infiltration at our caucuses that are coming up? And number three will be the left is now mobilizing children in their protests and putting them in front of vehicles. And I don't know about a lot of you, but most of us drive higher profile vehicles. I would not be able to see a 7 or 8 year old that's in front of my vehicle. It looks like they're looking to have a young child be tragically killed in a vehicle run over as part of these protests. And that will just inflame the left's anger even more. What could be done about that? That's it.
Can we see the data, like in the 50% and stuff? Because otherwise it's just conspiracy theories. I really need to see some facts to get excited to know. And there's enough energy. So if we spend energy on things that aren't true, we won't have any left for the things that we really should be aiming for.
Ken, thank you for your question. I would love to answer that. The Signal app, thank goodness for independent journalists. We are finding out so much information because of their hard work. So I think that was Pam Higby that cracked into that Signal app. And yes, there are implications that State Representative Brad Tapke was involved in that. State Representative Alex Faulkner was involved in that. And also there are people saying that possibly Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan was involved in that as well. I know for sure that that information has been sent to the FBI and that they're looking into that. That's all I know. I don't know if it's true or if it's not true, but I have faith that the FBI will look into that and we'll learn more. So that's what I do know. And then about the children, I don't know anything about them putting children in front of vehicles or anything like that, but I can tell you that when I was in St. Paul a couple weeks ago, it was shortly after they decided that Minneapolis schools didn't have to go to school anymore. Mike and I were both there, I think, that day. About 1,500 students were bused to the Capitol, and they were there protesting ICE. They were there holding signs and protesting ICE. Fights broke out amongst the students during that time, so I think it was kind of reported in the news because of that. But yes, I mean, they are definitely getting children involved in this as well. So
Thanks for verifying that they're not just conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
that's what I know.
They've been waiting forever.
Yeah, I'm coming. It's on.
Okay, I just have one thing that I would like to say, and that is that I am very tired of everyone denigrating immigrants. Not every immigrant is a murderer, a rapist, a child abuser, and it is wrong for you to continue to talk like that. There are good and kind people who come here both legally and illegally, and they are doing that to better their own family. And it is horrible that you keep saying those things because they are not true. And Donald Trump also has done a lot of that. And we are upset by the treatment that the ICE agents put on those people. And some of those people are children. And I will say that your argument saying that leftist people are putting children in front of vehicles is absolutely ridiculous. And I applaud you are doing wonderful things, and amen.
Thank you, it's hard, thank you.
I did not hear a question there, but I would like to just real quick say what I had said earlier one more time, clearly and precisely, so everybody can hear this. I said that ICE is here to perform targeted operations to collect criminal, illegal aliens. I never once said that all immigrants are criminals. Thank you.
That's wrong. Sorry.
Thank you, Krista, and you kind of covered what I was going to say. I'm not hearing anybody bring up just immigrants, because we're a country founded on immigrants, but we're talking about the ones that they're currently targeting with ICE, and that is the illegals that have a severe criminal record. And that's what their targeted list is. So that's what we're being told, that's what we're seeing. I guess we have a follow-up.
I've got a lady here with a question.
Not really a question, but this surely is the time for prayer. Can we pray?
Amen.
We'll just hang on a second here. We got- Just email here, okay? Trying to figure out here. Ma'am, you already had a question, so I'm gonna have you sit down. We're gonna let other people ask questions. You have a question?
Hi, I appreciate you saying that you want to hear more from our generation. And I will tell you guys, I'm not growing up in the same world that you all grew up in. My money doesn't stretch very far. I mean, the average home buyer is in their 60s right now. It's really hard for me to get ahead. What I'm concerned about is the federal debt, which has only ballooned, even under this administration. It has gone up by trillions. Do we need to get closer? Okay. That's the number that I struggle to imagine. We have a federal debt of tens of trillions. And are we ever going to be able to pay that back? Of course not. And what happens when we can't pay that back is that other nations lose trust in us and the dollar weakens and the dollar loses value. And who pays for that? Is all of us. We all lose when the dollar loses value. So my question is, I'm struggling to plan for my future under these conditions. My question is, what do you say to someone like me? And what's your plan, considering the federal debt is only increasing?
You're right on. We watch that federal debt just go up, up, and up, and it's hurting all of us, because that debt is our debt, because that's where they get the money to pay it. It comes from us, and it's a huge concern. And we have got to get government at all levels to stop being Santa Claus. I mean, Mike had mentioned earlier, you go back to the last budget that Tim Pawlenty put through was $29.9 billion for our state budget, and that's a 2-year budget. The biennium now, we're at about $66 billion, but the one prior that was put together in '23 was $72 billion, and that is our general fund dollars. So that's the money that comes from all of us paying taxes and, you know, of all kinds, personal income tax, sales tax, etc. That budget actually almost doubles when you bring in the federal dollars that match it. And that's what our state is spending over the 2 years. First of all, the state does not need to spend it. There's a lot, and this fraud proves it. We've got a lot of wasted money going out there. Federal government has the same thing, and if we can get those things reeled in, but we got to get people that are, you know, they're all trying to buy elections and get votes, and how they do it. Oh, we'll fund your project, we'll fund that project. We've got to get past that and get back to the role of government, which is a lot less than we're currently at today. So From the state level, it needs to be reduced greatly, and the same thing at the federal level, because otherwise, young people, as they look forward, it's a pretty dim picture, and it's not fair to them, and we got to do better. But we've got to get government to reel that in, and it's, you know, spending is addictive to some of them. It's unfortunate.
A young person that studies the economy. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I have children. My wife and I have 9 children. Part of the reason we started our business where we did is because we want our kids to have opportunities, because we live in an area that we need more jobs. We need more opportunities for our young people. And we said at some point in time, we want them to stay home, because I went away to college and met my wife, and I wanted my kids, when our daughter was born, she was almost 2 years old, I said St. Cloud is no place to raise a kid. That was 20 some odd years ago. We wanted to be back home. Well, I wanted to be back home. She's from California. This is an amazing place to raise a family. This is a great place with morals, ethics. And that's not to say that other places don't, but there's a different mentality out here. But what we've done is we're not, because of the size of government, because of the growth, because of the spending, we are selling our kids' futures. I mean, we're just selling them out. Because we're promising money to many different entities. At the federal level, at the state level, it's not working. If you look at the debt clock, I think we're adding another $1 trillion onto our debt every 3 months, if I remember right. That is unsustainable. We simply cannot do that. The amount of fraud that's taking place, not just in our state, but in our country, by some estimates, between $300 and $500 billion, primarily through Medicare, Medicaid, health insurance fraud. We've got money that's going all over the world that we can't track. That's your money. And you were right about inflation. The more money you print, every time we turn around and there's another program, not program, but more dollars created, that's inflation. Which is a horrible thing. So, how deep do I want to go on this one, I guess? We have to stop. Reagan said that we don't have a taxing problem, we have a spending problem. That's one of my goals in government, is to basically cut the size of government, so that our kids have the opportunity, so that their futures look bright. Instead of a house that you could afford even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, is now increased 50, 60%, probably more. Property taxes have gone through the roof. You simply cannot afford your taxes on your property anymore. If we hadn't bought the home farm from my mother, she would not be able to afford the taxes anymore. It's amazing what we've done, and we've stood by. And a lot of times, to Paul's point, in order to win elections, we make promises as politicians, to spend more money, to buy more votes. Somebody mentioned the Trump administration before. You want to know my biggest contention with the big, beautiful bill? $3 trillion worth of debt. That's horrible. I am not in favor of that. How do we change this? First of all, reel back that fraud is one thing. Things that we're funding, was talked about the World Health Organization before. You can contest that a little bit. The UN itself has said, we're going to go bankrupt if the United States isn't paying the bill. Should we be paying the bill? We have too many things, too many fingers in so much stuff around the world that we're paying for, and we're shortchanging the citizens who are paying the bill.
Mike, Naran?
I'm going to jump in. Or I'm not. I'm going to jump in real quickly since this was a federal question. You mentioned the reconciliation bill, big beautiful bill, whatever. It was not an appropriations bill. It was basically a budget framework for the next 10 years. And this is why we're so happy to have gone through regular order with the appropriations process, is because we're bending the curve on spending. The proposed budget targets that were passed in the reconciliation bill are going to cut non-defense spending by 22% over the next 10 years. So we finally, again, we have to change the trajectory of spending. But if we're, at the state level, I'm sure Congresswoman Fishbach would love to give you her zero-based budgeting bill that she carried every biennium. It says we're not starting at the last number, we're starting at 0. You come back to us and you justify the success of your program so that we fund you again. So be very happy to give you that text. But if we're really going to be honest, and I'm sorry, ma'am, that I can't see you around the corner, if we're really going to be honest about the spending that we do, at some point we're going to need brave people to step forward and talk about entitlements. Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, those trust funds are huge drivers of our national debt. They're spending on autopilot, and I don't know what that answer is, and I'm not suggesting anything, but that is a large part of our debt in our country. So, again, I just wanted to jump in quick because the big beautiful bill, the reconciliation, is bending the curve on federal spending.
And we all love the zero-based budgeting, but we haven't had friends across the aisle jump on that one. But we do need to get that through, because whether it's your budget or every city and county, they got to start from flat table and start working up, but not the state. It's got inflation and everything added into it every year. And if you pull back on that increase, you're cutting them. It's not a cut, it's just reducing the increase. But we'll go on to the next question.
My name is Shelley. I'm from Motley, and I have a child care center that we opened in our church a couple of years ago, nonprofit. I also own a title company in Baxter, Minnesota, and I'm also part of a law office in Baxter, Minnesota. So I have a multifaceted perspective on some of the spending that's going on. In the last month, I've had to work with payroll on this paid leave program that's coming out of my employees' checks or my bottom line. I had to choose. I took it out of my bottom line, but that just means I'm going to pass that along to the consumer. Then I did another one here about help your employees build financial security with the Minnesota Secure Choice Retirement Program. Looks like some kind of an IRA program that's going to be run by the government. You can take it out of your paycheck and build for retirement. That seems to be competing with the private industry that already provides IRA services and jobs for people to manage those and invest and that sort of thing. On the child care part of it, I have to say one good thing, I get a Great Start grant every month. I think I've sent him an email that said, thank somebody, whoever created that program. It gives me $1,000 or $2,000 a month so I can keep my wages competitive for these gals to come and care for children every day. It is a ruthless, in the trenches job every day that does not pay very well. It's truly a calling, and thank you for that extra money. But now I see in one of the recent bulletins I get from the state, $1.9 million RFP for early childhood facilities that must be owned by state or political subdivision. So again, as our government competing with private sector by funding its own programs over the privately run and administered programs, I don't trust the Pay Leave Act. Where did that money come from? It started collecting money on January 1st, and I had a family come to me and say, oh, we don't need to bring our child now until March 1st because I'm getting paid leave. Was that bucket full to start with, and we just started collecting? I don't know where that money came from. So I don't trust that in this IRA program. Do I want to trust the government with my retirement plan? I don't know. Who's going to manage that money? Where's that going to go? That's my question, is the accountability. And there's more programs coming through in the wake of DHS. Who's watching this money?
I'll jump in on your paid family medical leave and try to keep it high level because I got somebody right next to me chomping on the bit because this is a huge, huge item coming forward that is now all in place. The House Fraud Committee back in, I believe, December, already held a hearing on it because they can see the fraud coming. But how did it get funded to pay this initial outlay? It's all of your money. Back in 2023, when they brought this forward, they started out by taking 1.7 billion of that surplus, moving it into the paid family medical leave to kind of front load it. After they worked it for a little bit, said, hey, we're way short. They moved another 600 million in, so now we're up to 2.3 billion to build a agency, because it's a whole new agency of state employees. It was projected at about 430. They're telling us now that they've kind of reached where they think they can operate with about 350 employees, but still a major agency set up to do this. That number one, we did not need. If we wanted paid family medical leave, we could have done it through the private sector and it wouldn't have cost any of us $1. The same life insurance agent that sells you your short and long-term disability could have sold you a paid family medical leave policy. All we had to do was give the Department of Commerce the authority to let them sell it in Minnesota. That's how simple this could have been, because we had a lot of big business, we had schools, we had other places that were already had their own paid family medical leave programs, because it's a tool to recruit and retain your employees. If you need it, great. There's a lot of employers up in our neck of the woods that are seasonal. It definitely does not fit their mold of business. They can't afford it because you're only having employees for 3 months, 4 months, up to 6 months. It's got to fit your business. Now they put this together. It is going to be the next big fraud. Couple numbers. This was set to start on January 1 of 26. They went back and put it in for all of 2025 for the ladies that had babies. They can take medical leave. They could apply starting December 3rd. So I don't know what that number is as far as applications went, but we had a meeting with DEED on, I believe it was January 13th, and they had told us, so that, I don't know if it could even have been as current as January 12th. There had already been 25,000 applications this year. This thing is going to run out of money so fast, but it's a government program. They're just going to come back. They can automatically go up to 1.12% on the deduction, and they're going to have to put a bunch more money into it. And again, you guys are funding it. But.
Thanks, Senator. Paid family medical leave has been, I'm a small business owner. My husband and I own a restaurant. We have for 15 years. And as soon as it was my first term, as soon as this rolled out, I thought, oh my goodness, how are we going to do this? How are any small businesses going to do this? A lot of us struggle right now just to find employees. And to lose an employee for even 2 weeks could be the end of a lot of small businesses. We don't have a backup workforce in Minnesota. We do not have people banging down the doors to get a job. And that it's going to be devastating. We're just beginning to see how this is going to unfold, but especially concerning our schools, where we don't have enough substitute teachers right now to begin with, nursing homes where we don't have enough nurses, hospitals. There's a lot of different areas where we have critical staffing shortages, and how this is going to only make that worse is left to be seen. And that's, the cost is one thing, as you had mentioned. A lot of the cost will get passed on to the consumer because we work on margins, and it's just another payroll tax that's going to have to be paid by the businesses. This time also, employees will have a portion taken out of their checks too, and a lot of people can't afford to have that taken out of their checks. So it's brand new. We'll see how this unfolds, but I do expect it to go bankrupt very quickly. Similar during COVID, when they laid everybody off and they used our unemployment insurance fund to give everybody $600 a week. That did run out of money. I wasn't in the legislature then, but it caught my attention as a non-essential business that was closed down. And they supplemented that unemployment insurance fund with general fund money. I fully expect that that's what they're gonna try to do this time as well, when this does go bankrupt. But we'll see what happens there. It's gonna be hard. You know, speaking of like critical staffing shortages, with everything that's going on in Minneapolis right now, their law enforcement, they're at half. They're at half of what their charter says that they need to have for law enforcement in Minneapolis right now. Since these protests, since the beginning of January, 100 police officers from Minneapolis have applied for paid family medical leave. They're gonna be even more short down there. So we will see, but it is very concerning and very alarming. So.
She's been waiting to talk the whole time.
Well, let them answer the question and then I'll get over there, please.
Thank you. One thing when you get into office, there's a lot of stuff that gets thrown at you that maybe you don't know, don't experience, don't look at. I own my own business. When the paid family medical leave came across the desk, I started looking at what other states do. We're one of only, I think, 13 states that offer this. And when you look at the financials of those states, almost every one of those programs is strained because of, or that program is strained. When the senator talked about front-loading a program, that's exactly, in order to even get it off the ground, it needed that money. If a program is successful, it probably shouldn't need that money to begin with. So I started looking into why do we need this? And obviously, when we look at, you know, family issues, things like that, pregnancies, do we want a mother to have the opportunity to spend time with the baby? Sure. As a small business owner, I look at it and I go, we treat our employees like family. That's what happens out in Greater Minnesota. We don't necessarily need a paid family medical leave because we take care of our family. That's how it's done. As an employer, you cannot stay in business out in Greater Minnesota if you don't treat your employees good. Big offered paid family medical leave and so forth as a way of enticing employees. But when the state does this, takes control of this, we have problems because pretty much everything the state gets its fingers in, it messes up. 80%, right around 80% of businesses already offered some type of paid family medical leave. When you look at the other 20%, some of them are small businesses. Some of them do not want to offer something or cannot offer anything because startup businesses, which fall into that 20%, startup businesses are an amazing thing in our state. They rejuvenate on a regular basis, but they're also strapped and struggling. Only a certain percentage of them are successful. So when you put more regulation, more programs like this on top of them, it kills small businesses and it kills startups. When we look at the option that was mentioned before, a private option. I believe Representative Baker had that, and he said, we can do this without having government fingers involved here. And that was shot down. That could have been an option for everybody to buy into that system like an insurance. That would be your choosing and not the government choosing for you. The other way I look at this, and there's a couple other points I wanted to make, and I think Christy hit it very well, but the school costs. Your property taxes pay for your schools. When this hit our schools, that's part of the reason your property taxes are going up. They have to pay for that difference. And the city and the county. So your expenses are not just yours as an employer, but you're also picking up the tab for the state, for the schools, the counties, municipalities. You're getting hit probably 5 different ways other than just owning a business. And you'll wonder why it's getting more expensive to live out in Greater Minnesota. The fraud. when this program was first talked about and discussed, we like to put acronyms, paid family medical leave. We always refer to it as PFML. I said instantly, when you look at the parameters of this program, I said, this is going to be the paid fraudsters medical leave. The disconnect from the employer to the state funds here is so bad. The reporting is so bad. You could virtually go to another country and take paid family medical leave on our dime. We are going to be paying for fraudsters. This program is going to be filled with fraud. I guarantee it. When we look at that situation, why would anybody be excited about it? And yes, we do want to see people who have medical issues, need help, stuff like that. But there again, this could have been taken care of in the private sector. Another attack, and I said this to the unions. One of the biggest benefits of the unions was always benefits, right? The benefits negotiated by the unions were a strong point for them to say, you get better benefits by working for us, therefore, come and do this. When the government steps in and negotiates those benefits, this is a huge attack on the unions as well. They have to realize that. If the government negotiates every one of these benefits, there is no point in having a union anymore. The unions have to realize that this is not good for them as well. So I think that's most of the points I had. Absolutely.
I just want to say one more thing about the state family medical leave. And just taking a step back, but this is what happens with legislation that is passed in the House and then the Senate goes to the governor's desk to be signed. The next step, so when this bill came through, we read it, it was very ambiguous, it was very vaguely written. There were no descriptions of who, how much, like very vague, just very, very vague. But this is one of the biggest problems I have with how our government is run in the state. This legislation passes, it passes both houses, it goes to the governor's desk, it's signed into law. It's supposed to start January 1st of 2026. From there, it goes to the bureaucratic agency that is going to be in charge of overseeing it. And there they have the rulemaking. That's where they come up with how this program is going to be run, how they're going to implement this, in this case, this brand new benefit program from the state of Minnesota. And it isn't until, in this case it was DEED, it isn't until they start coming out with their guidelines and their who gets what and how much they get and who can apply. And they're the ones that make all that up. Once they have all of those rules in place, that's it, it's done. It doesn't come back to the legislature for approval. And that's what I've seen since I've been down there in 3 years. Very vague language in bills. It goes to these bureaucratic agencies. These bureaucratic agencies who are, the governor picks the commissioner for all of these agencies. And then they get to decide how these bills, how these laws are going to be implemented. And that, I mean, this is just one really great example of how blown up that can get because of that very loose process. So, yeah, more to come on paid family medical leave for sure this year.
I'm right behind you.
Okay. Thank you. Now, I'm just going to vote on the Family Medical Leave Act. And the reason is, I'm talking it from the human side, not the business side. Because these are to help people who are sick, who have sick children, they have cancer, whatever. It's the same kind of program when someone loses their job and they can apply for unemployment insurance. It's only for 12 weeks. We have a national law for family medical leave. It's just not paid for. So right now, I'm going to tell you a personal story. I lost my husband to cancer. It was horrible. Now, I was working full-time for the University of Minnesota Hospital and Clinics. I had a good job, luckily. My son was a senior in high school. and my husband got cancer. He died 6 months after diagnosis. It was horrible. 3 months in the hospital, he got home. I was afraid that he was gonna not die before my 12 weeks were up, because if it happened, I would have been fighting. I did not get paid a nickel during that time. And this is why the biggest reason why people file bankruptcies is medical bills and other health insurances. I could not afford a home health nurse because my husband was totally bedbound for 3 months at my house, our house. It would have been such a thing not to worry about money. I could have been concerned about my son in his senior year and my husband's dying. So you're looking at how much it's going to cost you as a business. I'm looking at from how much does it cost a human being who has a child who's sick or they're sick. And it's the same thing. We don't complain about people when they lose their job and get unemployment insurance. It's funded the same way. And it's only for 12 weeks. Unemployment insurance can last longer. And it's not 100% salary. It's just a percentage. And you have to follow guidelines for medical leave to do it. So you have to have a doctor's. You have to go through all these channels. So I just want to look at it from a human point of view, not business. And this is why it passed. And it's too late for me, but if it can help anybody else, that's where I'm at. So I'm just asking you nicely and kindly, with compassion, look at it. So my question for you is, you said, how do you do this for a small business? Well, so tell me, you're never going to hire anybody who might get pregnant? Are you never going to hire someone who might have a health issue and you can fire them so you don't have to pay for them? These are the questions I'm asking you from the bottom of my heart. Because if I vote for someone, I want to know that they're from a place of compassion for the citizens, not just big business. And I'm asking you that to think about.
I love that question, and thank you for asking that. As it's been said a couple different times, but we offered a private option for this, and I did vote in favor of that. I think we all voted in favor of a private option for this because, yes, there is a need. I can understand, and I do think it's so great if mothers can stay home longer with their children when they have them. Beautiful. I think that that's amazing. We offered a private option for this. Okay, so that's one. And then you asked me another question. Have I never hired an employee that was pregnant or had medical issues? I've had both. And we've actually had several children born to employees in the 15 years that we have owned our restaurant. And in those cases, as Mike talked about earlier, we take care of them. We treat them like family. We provide for them. Any small business owner in Greater Minnesota right now knows that getting employees is very hard. Getting really good and dedicated employees is very hard. We understand that. My husband and I have bought vehicles for employees. We actually bought the house next to our restaurant so our employees have a place to live because that was a problem for a few of our employees at some point. We have had employees that have had addiction issues, that have had to go and get help. We've helped them do that. This paid family medical leave private insurance plan would have helped them during that time. So no, I'm not heartless. I do understand that there might be a need for this. I just don't think that the government does it best.
The only thing I wanted to add real quick, those of us that have had employees, and I've had plenty of them over the years, our employees are the most valuable asset in our business. Without those employees, we couldn't do what we did. I mean, I do a little bit of a small business now where I can do it by myself when I have time, but you don't grow it, it isn't a business that funds things. Anybody that's got employees knows that they're so valuable, but we needed, there was much better ways to approach that, and that's the biggest thing we're saying. It didn't have to cost all of us billions and billions of dollars and create problems for our employers. Because our employers and employees communicate all the time. They can work this out.
Yeah, you're gonna have to look over here instead. All the action is over there. As I drive around the state, I see business owners that are flying the Minnesota flag. Our Minnesota flag. Our original Minnesota flag. I haven't noticed the counties and the governments, but many business owners, including us in our backyard by our pole barn. Do we have any chance of getting our flag back? Question number one. And do we have any chance of Minnesota driver's license and state ID that you need to show at least residency and that you are a citizen of the United States?
Can we do anything on those? Yes. But it starts with turnover and change of who sits in the governor's office and on down. I mean, the flag, all they did is create a committee and let the committee decide, and it was never even voted on, other than the creation of the committee, which they pushed through on party line votes, that gave us the flag that's out there now. And the only ones that truly have to fly this new flag are government buildings. Everybody else has got the choice to remain and fly the older one.
Doesn't that divide us in a way?
Yeah, it shows where you stand on this issue. Yeah. And I forget. Yeah, I think it's, yeah, just a state. What was the second question?
Minnesota driver's
Oh, the driver's licenses. Again, the same thing. That is totally wrong. We're seeing it across the country with CDLs being just handed out, like the old baseball cards that we used to get years ago. And people that can't even read our signs are driving heavy rates down the road and causing some of these accidents. It needs to come back to where whoever is going to get these licenses has to go through the same processes that we do. And then, and that can all change with leadership.
They need to at least show residency in the state. And me personally, I would prefer that they, if they are an immigrant, which I welcome immigrants, that they show that they have now become a citizen of the United States.
Just real quick about the flag, yep, I think it would take a Republican trifecta in order to do that, but I know that that's a huge priority for every person I know down there, every Republican that I know down there. And I know a lot of people, but also a lot of our smaller cities are still flying the real American, or Minnesota flag, and I'm so thankful for that. The driver's licenses, they really did some damage when they did that. Anybody can get a driver's license now. They don't even have to give an address. They don't even have to give a legitimate address of where they live. They can describe where they live. They can pick an address. Nobody knows, but once they get that, it's gonna be really hard to prove that they are an illegal immigrant, because that's what they're going to use for their identification. There is nothing differentiating your driver's license from the driver's license that they're receiving. That's a big, big problem, and I think that that will have, even if we were to reverse that, I don't know how you claw that back. It's almost like the toothpaste out of the tube. It'll be really hard to do that, so, but it's a big issue, yes.
I think Krista covered it very well. The flag, obviously, should have never been changed in the first place. The premise that was put forth to change it made no sense. Why the cost of it as well was ridiculous. But this is what happens when you have government that's unchecked. You know, we have a divided government. Our founding fathers are very wise in what they did, how they set up our levels of government. And when you see there was always supposed to be a different mindset, so to speak. But it also does show something that is a problem in our country. George Washington, in his farewell address, warned us about political factions. He did. He was very, very firm on that. But we have some of these issues now because we're into these camps. We have to admit sometimes that we make fault, or that we're at fault. Okay? And I'm gonna bring up omnibus bills. Omnibus bills to me are the bane of my existence. When you wanna look at the exponential growth of government, we vote for these things on our side. It is absolutely horrible. Transparency is lost in these bills. The growth of government takes place in every one of those omnibus bills. They are against our Constitution. So we have to look at our own, do a little bit of soul searching too, because we're not without fault. In the House of Representatives, we control purse strings. That's the way our government is set up. So when we talked about some of the budget issues that have come forward, I was willing to shut down government last time. Because of the extremes that are going on here, we cannot keep doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting different results. We have to do better. The flag is great, but if we don't have fair elections and free elections without the fraud, we're never going to win. The IDs that go with that, when we couldn't even adjust them, which is what we asked for, a different orientation so that they couldn't be used for voting, that was voted down. The massive fraud in the state, we need to change a lot of things. But we also need to be bold. When we don't have the majority, we need to be even more bold to take steps that the other side doesn't seem to have a problem with. They didn't show up for the House for the first 3 weeks. We on our side often look at this and go, well, that might be detrimental to our next election, so we won't do that. They don't have a problem with shutting down government. When we have something that we need to dig our heels in for, we need to do it. We're simply not doing it right now. We need to do a better job.
Okay, I think this gentleman, we're going to give him the last question, and then we're going to start wrapping things up.
All right, thank you. Well, I just want to change the subject just a little on elections coming up, contributions. I give you X number of dollars to take care of your contribution. You spend twice that much mailing me back asking for more money. I am sick and tired of that. I know we've got so many assets to give, and sometimes all I can support with is my numbers, you know, you get a vote. So on the same token with that, some of that money I think could be spent on communication to people that need to be educated on facts. Coming in here reading your key cards and not listening to the rest and then walking out is not communication. You got to listen to the other side, whether you agree with it or not. So I don't know how you can get on these local channels on TV that ignore the other side, which is us, all the time down there. But I would like to see money spent communicating. The bulk of the people don't have a hardcore political, I want this or that. They go on their feelings and what social media has told them or whatever. They don't research facts other than, well, I heard that on WCCO, but it must be true. Well, I've heard on 8 other places that a little different story. Who's telling the truth? I can require a little more. So thank you for your time and appreciate that.
Can I say one thing? I've been talking with Krista, this has been going on for a little while, but I would truly like to hold a government 101 class, so people understand the process. You know, it's just not like, you know, Paul, Mike, or Krista write up this great bill, and then it goes to the House floor. That's not how that works. You know, so people get frustrated. It's like, well, this is a great idea, how come it doesn't go anywhere? Well, people need to learn the process, and then be a little more understanding on how things work. And so, truly, this summer or whatever, I would really like to do a government 101 class for anybody who would like to attend. Nah, apparently not.
I just want to quick say thank you so much for saying that, and you're so right. And Lisa, you're so right too, and we have talked about this a lot. But there is the whole legislative process, and I go to schools quite often and talk to students about how does an idea become a law, and it's fascinating. There are a lot, but what it boils down to, truly, is numbers. Whoever has the majority, that's what, I mean, they push through, in my experience, everything that they want to have happen. And it's unfortunate because there's very little conversation, there's very little debate right now, and this isn't sustainable. I mean, this isn't sustainable. We can't live like this for much longer. I mean, it's just constant fight, constant chaos, constant turmoil. So, I mean, I could talk about this for probably hours, but there's a lot to be covered there. So, thank you for bringing that up.
I'll just add, yeah, thank you. I actually looked at my computer at the junk mail stuff last night, I don't know why I clicked on it. And when there's some of these requests that just go over there, I mean, they're multiples per day. So I know what you're getting, but when you talk about our media and getting the word out, I don't know how many TV interviews I've done that never ever see the light of day. Or if they do, and this has been a year or so ago, and it was around healthcare and something that Attorney General Ellison just messed up royally. They did an interview with me and I went after him because he ruined it. And that night at 10 o'clock when they play it, they put the little snippet of what I had said, and they already had his rebuttal on, which means they gave him what I said so he could rebut and have a comment to complete their article that evening. It hadn't even played to the public, and he knows what's coming. That's just how rotten that basically mainstream media is in most cases. And so, you know, I do the interviews whenever we can, but what we say they don't like to hear. And so as soon as we're done, I'm sure they hit delete, and there's where it goes. But thank you.
Just real quick, and on that too, social media, that's why, because of social media, X in particular, since Elon Musk has taken that over, that is why we know so much more now than we did even 4 years ago. So don't get down on social media too much. It's just who you're following and who you're listening to on social media. For instance, this last Sunday, I was sitting in the pickup line picking up my daughters from volleyball practice, and I'm like, you know what? I was so fired up about Governor Walz and his rhetoric and the death of these 2 people in Minneapolis, and this could all have been prevented. And I did a quick video. It was probably 2 minutes on my phone, just a quick video, and I talked about that. And I sent it to one of my good friends down at the house, and I said, do you think I should post this on social media, on Facebook? And she's like, yep, I think you should. And I did. And it has over 600,000 views now. Over 50,000 people have given a thumbs up or a thumbs down or whatever. But it's reaching people. So I think there is definitely a really good place for social media, but it's just who you're listening to.
I'll keep it quick because I think we're well past our time. But thank you, and the question was social media, exactly. We've been talking about the fraud in the state of Minnesota. Elliot Engen had done videos at those same daycares, and very little public, outcry, or very little public attention. Nick Shirley comes into the state, does a video on it, and it blows up. So the tools that we have to use are those social media ones. To the senator's point, I did video, or after the articles of impeachment came out, I was on BBC, I was on a bunch of different entities. Newsmax was the most welcoming, of course, but the BBC interview, or a couple of those that I did, you watch it later. We talked about many things, and anytime I pulled up the fraud and said, these riots that are taking place are a cover for the fraud. Guess what didn't make those interviews? That part. Exactly. But we have to use the tools that we have. Social media, I'm not a big social media fan, but it's there, we have to use it to get our message out. The Constitution, like Lisa had mentioned, we started doing this a number of years ago in our home. We invited friends, families, and neighbors over to Hillsdale College. We went through that, the Constitution classes. This last summer, we did it at Thunder Lodge. Charlotte's Tavern, I'm sorry, it was Thunder Lodge. Every Thursday, we were doing that this summer for about 8 weeks. We had people showing up to learn the Constitution. It's got to start somewhere. We've got to educate people. So thank you, and can we end with, I believe Pastor was going to say a prayer.
Yep, Amos is going to say a prayer.
Perfect.
But one thing too, speaking of social media, all these, Paul, Krista, and Mike, they all have websites, Facebook pages, YouTube pages. Please look them up. I mean, they all post, Mike posts great videos, Krista posts great videos. Paul, I'm not sure if you're a video guy, but now he's going to start. So please look these guys up, go on their webpage, and then Wadena County Republicans has a YouTube page. It's Wadena County Republicans, all one word. Go on there and subscribe, and then we'll be posting, I do believe we'll be posting this whole thing on there. We also have a video on what is a caucus and different things that we put. So if you go and like and subscribe that, we're also having a gubernatorial debate April 17th, and we're going to be live streaming that as well. If you don't want to attend, we'll also have it online. Pastor Amos, could you come say a prayer? And then everybody, there's still coffee and donuts left back there. Otherwise, we're going to have to send them home with our fine officers.
We know they like donuts.
Well, we obviously want to thank everyone for coming and engaging in civil discourse. If you believe that we need to pray over our elected officials, if you stand as we pray. Heavenly Father, we recognize that these are challenging times, but unfortunately nothing new. All throughout the years, spiritual battles have raged, good versus evil. Father, we thank you, in the midst of all this, that evil has exposed its hand. It's overplayed its hand. And men and women like that are sitting in this room are tired of it, and they're stepping up. And Father, I pray that we wouldn't do those actions just based on our own ability, but Father, we would lean in on you like never before. We need your help. Father, I pray over Paul, over Krista, over Mike, and the leadership that they're providing as very real people with families, businesses, whatever else they have put their hands to, that they give of themselves for this office, and it's obviously not for the pay. Father, I pray that you would guide and direct them, that you'd fill each of them, their heart and mind, with incredible anointing, discernment, wisdom, direction. Father, I thank you for the manners in which they've been able to articulate policy, direction, even in the face of criticism. And Father, I pray that as we move forward into the caucuses, into the endorsing conventions, into the primaries, and all the other things, the stages, Father, that we wouldn't just expect other people to educate us on the process, but we would become students of this great nation and involved and advocates in the process. Father, we would lean in on you like never before. That our prayer closet, Lord, we would wear out the material on our jeans, on our knees, interceding for this country, interceding for this state, engaging in good dialogue with people who disagree vehemently with us, trusting that you will work things through. People aren't totally obstinate, and that we ourselves would be open to understanding your way, not ours, but your kingdom come, and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Thanks for everybody coming out. Remember, our meetings are the fourth Tuesday of the month at 7 o'clock at the Wadena BMW.